Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to Judson Memorial Church. I love a good table moment. I love a good shared meal moment at Judson because it always takes me like 45 extra seconds to get everybody to quiet down, which I love. Make your voice heard in this place. I do not want to shut you down. It's so lovely to see all of you gathering at table today. If we have never met, or you could use the reminder, my name is Micah. I'm the senior minister here at Judson. My pronouns are they and them, and I have the honor of serving alongside our priesthood of all believers who make up the Judson congregation, but also especially Reverend Bridget, who is our resident minister for arts and worship. And I want you to do beautiful. She will always take the applause. Absolutely. If you are wondering, where have I ended up today? Why are we sitting at table? Why is there all this food in the back? You're in luck, because if you've just kind of happened into this space, today is our autumn shared meal. So, after our service, in about an hour or so, we will make our way to the back and get a bunch of our potluck meal, anything that you would like to eat, and we'll regather at table and just share in community together for another hour or so. So you've lucked out if you didn't remember that it was this Sunday. Thank you for being here, and thank you to everyone who's making that shared meal happen. I'm going to say this at the beginning of the service and then again at the end of the service, or else the Congregational Life Committee will be very angry with me. We need extra help cleaning up after the meal. That is not just throwing away your plate. If you have somewhere you have to run to, please, please, please know that you can just go. But we have to clear this entire space because Middle Collegiate Church comes in at 2 p.m. and they need the space too, and they're not expecting to come in and have all these tables here. So it would be really lovely for those of you who are going to stay through the entire shared meal, if you would help to tear down the tables, make sure that this room looks beautiful, and we are gracious hosts for the folks from Middle Church. I want you to do two more things. Turn to that camera right there and wave hello to the Judson online community. It's so wonderful to have you all here. I hope you can smell the deliciousness of this space wafting all the way to where you are. I hope you have delicious things at your table, and know that we're so grateful to have you here in this space with us. And I also, especially today, and especially with the week that we are now entering, I invite you to give attention to our land acknowledgement and commitment to action. We gather today on land that is the ancestral home of the Munsee Lenape tribe, of the Lenni Lenape people. We acknowledge these people of the Stony Country and decry the unjust taking of their Lenape hoking. To acknowledge well and move beyond ceremony to reciprocity, we commit to decentering and stretching ourselves in order to better understand our place on this land. We commit to making meaningful connections between the original people and their ancestral land in order to counteract the myth-spinning systems which still threaten and kill us today, including white supremacy, Christian supremacy, and settler colonialism. And we commit to counteracting all harm to original peoples that perpetuates a narrative of erasure. May we not only hear, but actually absorb those words, especially this morning, especially as we journey into our shared meal and this shared service and far beyond. Welcome, welcome, welcome to this shared table. And now to Henco. Thank you, Henco. Consider my harvest home raised. My goodness. Okay. This service where we will be exploring myths and stories and the ways that we use them well and the ways that we perhaps don't use them well, I think are perfectly encapsulated in today's meditation quotation from trans icon Janet Mock, who says, "It is the world's limitations and the myths that we internalize about ourselves that pushes us to diminish our power and ignore it." And with that, this is a prayer for our roots. No matter who you are, you were once poured into this mystery, new and nervous, not knowing who you would be. Planted in the maddening soil that is this world, trusted to begin your tale, to take up space and expand. Many directions are dead ends, but don't let that stop your tendriling. No matter who tries to bury you, you know your calling. Grow. Be willing to parent yourself, no matter what wounds that word may whittle. Remember the foundation from which your freedom unfurls. The universe wants you to wander far and still recognize the crumbs that carry you back home. No matter what lies you've allowed to lacerate you, even if you need to abandon the narrative that nudged you to now, you are still a story worth telling. A story worth unearthing, a story worth starting again. Amen. And now would you please rise in body and or spirit, and let's sing "Come Ye Thankful People, Come."
Amen. I am Reverend Bridget Anthony. My pronouns are she and her, and I will be reading the Ancient Testimony and the Modern Testimony. The Ancient Testimony this morning is from Psalms 78, verses 1 through 4, the Inclusive Bible. My people, hear my teaching. Listen to the words of my mouth. I will open my mouth in parables. I will utter things hidden from of old, the things we have heard and known, things our ancestors have told us. We won't hide them from our children. We will tell the next generation. And the first modern testimony is from Dietrich Bonhoeffer's After 10 Years. We have been silent witnesses of evil deeds. We have become cunning and learned the arts of obfuscation and equivocal speech. I should have practiced this a little bit more. Experience has rendered us suspicious of human beings, and often we have failed to speak to them a true and open word. Unbearable conflicts have worn us down or even made us cynical. Are we still of any use? We will not need geniuses, cynics, people who have contempt for others, or cunning tacticians, but simple, uncomplicated, and honest human beings. Will our inner strength to resist what has been forced on us have remained strong enough, and our honesty with ourselves blunt enough to find our way back to simplicity and honesty?
Hello, my name is Destinee Ryan, formerly Destinee Cushing. That's new. But I will be reading the second modern testimony. It's important to know that for many Native Americans, Thanksgiving is a day of mourning and protest, since it commemorates the arrival of settlers in North America and the centuries of oppression and genocide that followed. Organized by the United American Indians of New England in 1970, the fourth Thursday in November, Thanksgiving, is recognized as the National Day of Mourning for Native Americans and their allies. Many people gather at Coles Hill in Plymouth for an organized rally and day of mourning on Thanksgiving. Here's what they have to say about this choice to mourn. Thanksgiving Day is a reminder of the genocide of millions of Native people, the theft of Native lands, and the relentless assault on Native culture. Participants in National Day of Mourning honor Native ancestors and the struggles of Native peoples to survive today. It is a day of remembrance and spiritual connection, as well as a protest of the racism and oppression which Native Americans continue to experience. Some Native Americans mourn publicly and openly, while some choose to refrain from participating in this national holiday.
Will there really be a morning? Is there such a thing as day? Could I see it from the mountains if I were as tall as they? Has it feet like water lilies? Has it feathers like a bird? Is it brought from famous countries of which I have never heard? Oh, some scholar, oh, some sailor, oh, some wise man from the skies, please to tell a little pilgrim
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Would you please pray with me? May I say what I need to say, and may you hear what you need to hear. Amen. So our shared meal awaits us and is weighing down the tables in the back of the room, and our shared stories, especially about the complicated holiday that awaits us this coming week, continue to weigh us down. So as we prepare to feast on delicious food and hopefully fast from our sanitized mythologies, I have 4 questions for you. How are you using your stories? What stories do you use well? What stories do you not use well? And how are we using our shared stories? I have stories that free me, stories that encourage me, liberate me, and make me feel more interconnected with others. And then I have stories that imprison me, terrify me, fill me with anxiety, and make me feel completely alienated from others. I have both new visions that come from openness and empathy and imagination and tons of humility. And I also have old tapes that noisily fill my head, keeping me stuck to the same lies and the same patterns and the same habits that I should have abandoned long, long ago. This morning's ancient testimony is not just any old psalm. Scholars divide the 150 psalms that are found in the Hebrew Bible into several rough categories. There are enthronement psalms, affirming God as a sort of regal ruler. And there are psalms of trust, like Psalm 23 that we read a couple of weeks ago. It's that comforting shepherd imagery. There are imprecatory psalms, invoking judgment on one's enemies. There are, of course, complaint psalms and lament psalms. I mean, I like those a lot. And those are those psalms that the singer uses to belt their anxieties out into the ether. And then there is the category into which today's psalm, Psalm 78, falls, which are the teaching psalms, or the instructional psalms. And Psalm 78 boasts the honor of being the longest psalm in the Psalter, even though we've only got the first few lines printed in your bulletin today. And the first thing that you will hopefully notice is that there's actually a superscription before the rest of the psalm kicks in. There's an attribution to a fellow named Asaph, and even though we often skim over these attributions, this one I think is especially important because it actually places our psalm in history. The attribution of the psalm to Asaph dates it squarely to the time of King David because Asaph is known to have been a renowned temple musician in David's court. But second, even though our translators have rendered the word as instructional, the original Hebrew word to describe this psalm is actually maskil, which stems from the root of the Hebrew word sakal, which means to have insight. So yes, this is an instructional psalm. Yes, it is a teaching psalm. But this is not just some dry, rote history lesson. This is a lesson meant to uncover wisdom. This is a lesson meant to reveal insight in all who hear it and ingest it, especially our children, and especially the next generation. You know, the ones that we hope will fix all of this. The rest of Psalm 78 is a robust retelling of the Hebrew people's journey, their exodus from Egypt, their wandering in the wilderness, their journey to a new land, and their establishment of David as king. It's a long and detailed history, and it is meant to keep the stories going. It's meant to give some tales of fear and faith, of wondering and wandering, of searching and settling, of building and becoming, and these stories are important. It is imperative for history to be rehearsed and repeated in front of our children and in front of the next generation. We tell ourselves stories in order to live. The trouble comes when we humans muck all of that up, which we tend to really actually royally do. We not only tell ourselves stories in order to live, but we also tell ourselves stories in order to convince ourselves why certain others should not live, why certain others are less than, why certain others should be pushed off land on which they are literally living, why casual and systematized enslavement is acceptable, in order to sanitize and whitewash our own ignorance, our own anxieties, our own insistence that our side of the story is the whole, entire story. As social activist St. Grace Lee Boggs says, history is not the past. It is the stories we tell about the past. How we tell these stories triumphantly or self-critically, metaphysically or dialectically has a lot to do with whether we cut short or advance our evolution as human beings. You probably already see where this is going. Our national holiday of Thanksgiving is simultaneously complicated and very, very simple. As many of us prepare to feast today together and this coming week, it is always important for those of us who were force-fed a consistent diet of pleasant pilgrim mythology to dismantle those lies as we dine. It's necessary to recognize that for many Native Americans, Thanksgiving is a day of mourning and protest since it commemorates the arrival of settlers in North America and the centuries of oppression and genocide that followed. In one of the group hymns that we sang in last Sunday's service, we sang the following line, and it is a question. In a road paved with wrongs, can we learn some new songs? And today, with Thanksgiving and Psalm 78 as our teaching tools, it's important to add a complicating layer to this question. We can't create new songs and sing them. We can't replace our old songs without facing and reshaping the myth-spinning mess of our old wrongs and of our old songs. For many, it can be overwhelming to face that mess. Our old dance moves don't work, and we look messy, and we get embarrassed, and we get flustered, and God forbid we look like we don't know what we're doing. But to use a term from our siblings in the Buddhist tradition, the only way to move through this learning of new moves is to adopt a sort of beginner's mind. Who knows the term beginner's mind? Okay, beautiful. You should be experts. You can tell folks during the shared meal. Beginner's mind is a willingness to go back to the start and look at everything with an openness only available to those willing to truly be taught. The trouble is we have so many stories that we tell ourselves and that we tell one another that keep us spinning in the same dominant narratives that help us to dismiss others, demean others, deny, and end up dehumanizing all of us. And I've been thinking about the creative and destructive powers of stories this past week. I found myself clinging to a speech that was delivered by British Palestinian writer Isabella Hamad on September 28th, 2023. Just days before the October 7th Hamas attacks on Israel and the start of the past year of genocidal violence by the Israeli government. In her speech, Hamad calls for a deep shift in the narratives that we ingest and tell about Palestine and about so many endangered populations whose plights just tend to fly past us through our attention-deprived media. As a writer, Hamad clings to a term first used by Aristotle, problematic Aristotle, but that's another sermon. But this term was first used by Aristotle in his seminal text on narrative called Poetics, and this term is anagnoresis. According to Aristotle, anagnoresis is a watershed moment where a character shifts from ignorance to knowledge, in which this new knowledge produces either love or hate within that character. It gives that character a choice after that revelation. Anagnoresis is the moment in a story, specifically in a tragic story, and folks, we're in a tragic story right now, okay? When a character recognizes their true nature and the true nature of their environment, discovers the true nature of their situation or the situation of others around them, and uses this revelation to push them to a new resolution for their own story. Anagnoresis is a startling discovery that produces a change from ignorance to knowledge, and it's also translated as a recognition or a revelation. So revelation, if you remember back to many sermons here, revelation means that it's revealing something that is already within you. Wisdom that already lives in your body. Wisdom that is just waiting for you to get out of your own way, lift the veil, and step into it. And then upon that revealing recognition, upon that shift, it's up to the subject, it's up to us. It's up to us and that revealing recognition to do something new with our knowledge. The person can choose either deeper loving connection or more alienating, fearful disconnect. So, what stories do you use well? And what stories do you not use well? Where could a deep anagnoresis aid the disruption of old narratives and midwife our revelations, our recognitions, and our resolutions? And we can expand far past Thanksgiving. We all have stories to which we cling, right? I will continue using myself as the fool as example, but I'm looking at all of you. You got some stories that you cling to? Okay. Bubbling under the more horrifying collective atrocities of genocide and colonization and the collective lies of xenophobia and white supremacy and Christian supremacy are the more mundane rhythms of our own individual stories. Just as the history presented in something like Psalm 78 can be appropriated and misused in order to justify all kinds of horrific things, so each of us holds stories within us that have become unhelpful and harmful feedback loops that we still just insist on clinging to. These echoing loops keep us turned away from the liberating insight that might come if we looked those stories square in the face and asked ourselves if we were actually using those stories well. And here's what I mean when I ask what stories you're using well and what stories you're not using well. For me, a story is being used well when it connects us to ourselves and connects us to other beings at the same time, other humans, other species, to the earth, to the spirit, in a way that draws us toward deeper love and compassion and continuing creation. A story is not being used well when it fills us with disdain for other humans, degradation of other species, a disregard for the earth, and a dismissal of the spirit in a way that drowns us in deeper despair and disconnect and denial, and continuing destruction. Any story can be used in either way. The same Christian scripture that has called one person into a truly deeper faith and hope has also convinced someone else that other religions or experiences are not valid, justifying anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, Christian supremacy, and a whole host of other horrors. The same Thanksgiving story that has been watered down and fed faithfully to eager students for centuries dismisses the absolutely horrific traumas that Native Americans have experienced and continue to experience. What becomes of a people who use fear as their guiding force? What kind of guidance and wisdom and transformation do we keep from entering our hearts by leading with fear? As we move past this year's Trans Day of Remembrance, we must ask ourselves, what becomes of a people who fear the continuing transformation of people becoming who they deeply know that they are? Beyond the ways that trans people are already dehumanized by political propagandizing, we now have the dichotomy of a newly elected trans senator, Sarah McBride. Shout out to Sarah McBride, who is already facing dehumanizing pushback from her fellow senators even before she actually takes office. As we witness this horror, which has deep roots in religious patriarchy and misogyny, what are we actually being called to say and to do and to be? I know that we think we have it all figured out here at Judson. We need to say more, do more, be more when there are so many people leading with fear and so many trans people endangered. As so many people prepare to mark this Thursday's Thanksgiving holiday in all of its complications, we must ask ourselves, what becomes of a people who fear telling the truth and allowing that truth to inspire our continuing liberating work as we witness an ongoing genocide actively happening in front of us in Gaza, paid for by money from our own actual pockets, spreading and spreading and spreading now beyond borders with truly no end in sight? What are we actually being called to say and to do and to be? We need to say more. We need to do more, and we need to be more. What do we do right now? What do we do right now with the words that pastor and Nazi resistor Dietrich Bonhoeffer wrote way back in 1942, right before he was then murdered by the Nazis in 1945? Left that out, trigger warning, but left that out, but now I'm just like throwing it in here. If you didn't know, Dietrich Bonhoeffer was a Lutheran pastor who at first was very tentative. We look back at him and we say, like, that's the guy. Dietrich Bonhoeffer at first, he had to go through the moment. He had to go through the moment where he said, what am I called to say? What am I called to do? What am I called to be? And then he said it, and he did it, and he beed it. He was begging for truth to outweigh genocidal mythologizing. What do we do with these words, his words? We have been silent witnesses of evil deeds. We have become cunning and learned the arts of obfuscation and equivocal speech. Experience has rendered us suspicious of human beings, and often we have failed to speak to them a true and open word. Unbearable conflicts have worn us down or even made us cynical. Are we still of any use? Do you feel read by that? Are we still of any use? We will not need geniuses. Congratulations. We will not need cynics, people who have contempt for others, or cunning tacticians, but simple, uncomplicated, and honest human beings. Will our inner strengths to resist what has been forced on us have remained strong enough, and our honesty with ourselves blunt enough to find our way back to simplicity and honesty? Let's become geniuses of simplicity and honesty. Bonhoeffer isn't writing to the Nazis, obviously. Bonhoeffer is writing to his fellow would-be resistors. I dare say he is writing to us. It doesn't take cynical, contemptuous genius to resist what's coming our way and what's been coming our way. It takes radically hopeful honesty. It takes openness and a denial of denial. Because according to Hamad, our denial is the opposite of anagnoresis. Our denial is the opposite of continuing revolution. And as St. James Baldwin says, we cannot stick our heads back in the sand or seek comfort in our national illusions or our so-called innocence. Go back to where you started, or as far back as you can. Examine all of it, travel your road again, and tell the truth about it. What stories do we want to tell our children because we're telling them right now? What songs do we want them to sing because we're teaching them those songs right now? And what mutilating music do we need to face and dismantle and recompose? I have Bonhoeffer's question banging me on the head, are we still of any use? And I want to shout back at him, yes, 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 yes. We are still of use. A community of radical hope is still of use. It is more of use than ever. And I'm going to stop here today because I'm sweating like a Baptist preacher and I don't have my handkerchief with me. I hope that by now it is obvious that we need to tell our children and ourselves the truth of the violent colonialist foundations of our Thanksgiving story. I hope that by now we at Judson can trust that our children can handle that truth. Heck, it's the children who are actually leading us right now in our movements against climate catastrophe and genocide and patriarchal warmongering and anti-LGBTQIA plus legislation and all the myth-spinning norms so many of us thought we all had to simply perpetuate. The children are getting us out of it, so get out of the way. Our children can handle the truth even more readily than many of us can. And I also want you to look at yourself and realize that you are so of use. I want you to think of all the stories within you as an individual. Which stories are you using well and which are you not using well? Is there a story that plays in your head that keeps you from becoming the you who you know you need to be? Do you harbor the weight of an old, heavy story that says that you need to be a certain way in order to belong? Do you cling to a story that hurts you so much that you don't think that telling the truth about it actually can help you? Is that story actually of any use? I want you to be of use, so get rid of the ones that aren't of use. Or is that story I promise I'm not going to sing, okay? Or is that story keeping you from being of use? What story can you let go of today, and what story can you seek out? What stories from the endangered among us can teach you, instruct you on how you can be of use beyond what the dominant myths have taught you? Where can you have a beginner's mind, a beginner's heart, a beginner's openness to the actual insight that is actually rooted within you and waiting to tendril right out of you? Because you're not doing this agnoresis thing on your own. We're doing it together, collectively. When you need to be something more, look around at the folks who are desperately trying to be something more with you. Who you need to be is being revealed to you right now. Who you need to be is being revealed to you right now. Who we need to be is being revealed to us right now. We will be of use. Our radically hopeful honesty is of use, so let's tell. Let's live. Let's become that story. And in the meantime, let's sing a little refrain. It's in your bulletin. Henco's already playing that melody. We want to hear you. Now is the moment in our service where we welcome your monetary gifts. Old-fashioned baskets will start to be passed around the room if you have something to spare to support this congregation, this space, the many programs that come in and beyond this space. We will take anything that you have to give. There are multiple ways also listed in your bulletin to give online. For those of you in the online space, those ways will be shared for you momentarily, and they're in your online bulletin. No gift is too small, no gift is too large. Thank you for all of the ways that you give to this community. And speaking of ways of giving to the community, it's my honor to welcome up Hollye to take us through more of our anagnoresis, with reminding us of the spark of creation that lives in us all. So thank you, Hollye and Henco.
Thank you, Micah.
I've got an itching on the tips of my fingers. I've got a boiling in the back of my brain. I've got a hunger burning inside me, cannot be denied. I've got a feeling that the mother who made us, when she was kindling the pulse in my veins, she left a tiny spark of that fire smoldering inside. The spark of creation is flickering within me. The spark of creation is blazing in my blood. A bit of the fire that lit up the stars and breathed life into the mud. The first inspiration, the spark of creation. I see a mountain and I want to climb it. I see a river and I want to leave shore. Where there was nothing, let there be something, something made by me. There's things waiting for me to invent them. There's worlds waiting for me to explore. I am an echo of the eternal cry of let there be. The spark of creation is burning bright within me. The spark of creation won't let me rest at all until I discover or build or uncover a thing that I can call my celebration of the spark of creation. The spark of creation, may it burn forever. The spark of creation, I am a keeper of the flame. We think all we want is a lifetime of leisure, each perfect day the same, endless vacation. Well, that's all right if you're a kind of crustacean, but when you're born with an imagination, sooner or later the feeling of fire gets hotter and higher. The spark of creation.
Would you please rise in body and or spirit? This service may be ending, but our service in the world continues. If Stephen Schwartz can rhyme crustacean with imagination, you can do anything. So what will you say? What will you do? What will you be? What will we continue to co-create together? Because that spark of creation is living in this place, is living among all of you. Don't deny it. Let that spark of creation fly. Get some sustenance in the back before you leave, and let's sing together. Amen. The third verse of Autumn in New York reminds us all to eat well and then to clean up well. We're going to start with this table, and then we're going to go down that way, and then we'll go back up this way. If you desperately need to go grab something, this is Judson. Do what you need to do. But let's try to have a little bit of a semblance of order and move from here, there, and back up. But enjoy the meal. Can't wait to talk with you all.